Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Lisa with Grapevine Health, or some of you know me as Dr. Lisa on the street, and I'm so happy to be here today with Dr. Kayla Cunningham, who is a diabetes expert. Hi, Dr. Kayla.
Hey, Dr. Lisa, how you doing?
Good. Anything you want to tell people about yourself before I jump into my questions?
I am an endocrinologist, so
Ooh, that's
that
a big
means,
word.
right. So that means I am like a diabetes and hormone specialist for adults. So I see people 18 and up, and I've been doing that for about 20 years. And a
Wow.
lot of it is
So,
diabetes.
yeah. So you said you're also a hormone specialist. What do hormones do?
They are kind of the signals that your body sends to different parts of your body. So your brain will send hormones to your muscles for little kids to grow, and estrogen and testosterone to your organs to turn you into male, to a boy or a girl, and for all those things to happen like facial hair and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
one of those hormones is called insulin, and it helps the body with sugars.
Okay, so why don't you tell people what diabetes is? I think people know it has something to do with sugar, but what's happening?
So we all need some kind of sugar, right? It's like a main part of our body's energy. And so um, when the sugars are floating around in your blood too much, the sugar is supposed to go into your muscles and your bones and your brain to keep things running. But if it's
Hmm.
just hanging around in your blood, then it causes damage because it's not supposed to be there too much. So diabetes is when it's hanging around in your blood too much and causes damage.
Hmm. Yeah. And so how do people know if they have diabetes?
So you can do a blood test, and then there's this blood test called the A1C, and what that is a 3 month check on your sugars. So if you don't have diabetes, that number is around 4 to 5, and then if you're pre-diabetes or borderline diabetes, it's in that 5 to 6.5 range. And then if it's over 6.5, it's diabetes. So that A1C number is a percentage of your blood that's sticky with all the sugar that's been hanging around for the last 3 months. And the reason why it's 3 months is because your body makes fresh blood about every 3 months.
Mm.
So sometimes people will say like, oh, it's high because I had something on the way into that. But you would have had to have that something every day for the last 3 months. So it's really giving you a picture of what's been going on for the last 3 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I also hear there are other ways to monitor sugar that in the body and the way it breaks down other than the hemoglobin A1C because it might not be so accurate. Is that true?
Yeah, actually, that is true. It's mostly true, but sometimes the more accurate way is to prick your finger and put it in a machine that'll tell you what your sugar is that moment. So that's the kind of thing that goes up and down from day to day. And the reason why that A1C might be a little bit off is that if you have a low blood count or anemic, like iron deficiency, anemia, those kinds of things, like vitamins are low and your blood is low, then your A1C might look good because it's your blood count is low, but actually your finger stick will tell you that your sugars are actually running high.
Yeah. So, what should people who have diabetes eat? Because I've heard people say, "Oh, I can't have sugar because I have diabetes." And actually, I don't think it's that simple. Is it?
No, actually not, because there's different kind of diabetes. There's one kind where your body has enough of that insulin hormone to get all the sugar that you eat or starches. Your body turns all that food that you eat into sugar because it's trying to get the energy to where it needs to go. And
So,
if
sugar's not
you,
all bad.
oh no, we need some. But we just
Yay!
need, right? It's just not too much. But if you have too much of it, then your sugars will be running too high. And some people, if you don't have enough insulin is like this key that unlocks the door so that the insulin, your sugars can get out of your blood and into your muscles. So most people with the most common type of diabetes have type 2 diabetes. That means your body's making all kinds of extra insulin to keep you safe, to keep your sugars down in the blood and out of the blood. But it actually can make extra, but it can't make so much for might get to a certain size, or if you're eating certain kind of foods, it's more than that insulin hormone can handle. So now your sugars are running high. But you can have some, but you can't have so much that you max out the system. You can have this much up to here. And it's not just sugar. So some people say, like, I'm not a real candy person. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's more like bread, pasta, potatoes, corn, all those things. Your body, starches and sweets, your body will turn into sugar. So you need some just down here, not too much.
What's your take on the keto diet? You know, this is the diet that uses a different pathway. And so people are supposed to eat a lot of fat, maybe some protein, but almost no sugar.
So I think there's a lot of good information and bad information out there. So I have always been trying to help people to figure out how to eat lower carbs. So, for example, there was this one guy. So I think lower carb is a great start for most people. And then if you get down to keto, so carbs are your starches, your bread, your pasta, and your sweets. And if you get down to keto, that's a small amount, but it's still not zero. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going on zero. And if anybody tells you should have zero, you should check them, because that's not safe and it's not human.
And it's not safe because what?
Because we all need some of these, some starches, some carbohydrates, some protein, and some fat. The real myth is that we have done such good marketing to tell everybody to eat low fat, and then it turns out that if you everybody did what they were supposed to do. They ate low fat, and then they got all this bread, and then everybody became diabetic. And then it turns out their cholesterol wasn't better eating low fat, because everything got worse when they became diabetic. So now we want people to have low carbs. And then if you want to go really low, that would be keto. But most people eat, probably, if you actually sat down and measured it in an app or something, probably eat like 300, 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. And this is one thing.
That sounds like a lot. Is that a lot?
It's typical, and it is a lot. So you can still, so say I try to start with just 100. That's not keto. That's just low carb. One thing I want to point out, actually, that you brought up is that if you look at a label, a lot of people will look at it and see like, oh, it has this much sugar. But what you want to be looking at is this much carbs. All that sugar is going to be measured in your carbs. Mm-hmm. So it might say 0 sugar, but then you look at the total carb line, like that slice of bread, and it might be 15, and that's fine. So you could eat low carb 100 a day. You could still have a sandwich. You could still have some fruit later. You can have healthy vegetables, or you can even have a sweet potato. So some carbs is fine, but most people are actually in that 300 or 400, and that extra has a lot to do with what you're drinking. So I had this patient who, really nice guy, and he was always in the pretty well-controlled, mild kind of diabetes, no problems from his diabetes. And so that was, say, an A1C of 6.5. And then one year he came back for his checkup and his A1C number was 8.5, 9. That's dangerous. And I said, what happened? And he said, I didn't do anything different. I still go over and get my breakfast at McDonald's every day. I'm not moving. I'm not exercising. I'm over that. But nothing changed. That was the same person I was 6 months ago. And I said, "Did you have a special new treat or something?" And he
Hmm.
said, "Well, I go to McDonald's, but I have been getting a sweet tea instead of my coffee. So every day he
Oh,
would get one sweet tea. That's it.
that
And
has
that
a
one
lot of
sweet tea
sugar.
has probably 200 grams of carbs in it all by itself."
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, are you really attached to it? Because we can start pills to treat your food, or you could cut back and go back to the coffee um, with your breakfast." He was like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just go back to my coffee. I don't want to start a medicine." Great. And he reversed all of it by just cutting out that sweet tea.
That's a great story. And it leads to my next question, which is related to food in the Black community, because we have a lot of traditions, particularly Southern style cooking. And these are traditions that have been passed down for generations. So the food we eat tends to be very rich, high in carbs, high in cholesterol. We fry a lot of our foods. So what's your advice to people? What kind of adjustments should they be trying to make in their diet? And also tell us a story about the person who mentioned the bougie food. I think we need to hear about that too.
So I had another patient who was trying to do her best. She's on a lot of insulin and has actually been doing great. So her numbers that were in the danger zone, where that A1C number was in that double digits.
Mm.
The body doesn't fight off infections when you're in that double digits. That's like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% of your blood is sugar. It is not fighting off infections. You're going to get urinary tract infections. You're going to see your yeast infections, and COVID is probably coming for you. I mean, it just doesn't work well. So she's done really well. She got out of the double digits, and she really liked her orange soda, and she switched. She found like a Coke Zero. She found like a ginger ale zero. She found all these sodas that didn't have the extra sugar, and she loves some salad. She doesn't eat all salad. The thing is, you could just change what you drink and still eat 100% of what you normally eat and already cut your risk for pneumonia down just by drinking water or flavored water or no calorie sodas or what have you, if you're going to stick with soda. So anyway, she was spending some time with family. She had some eggs and sausage and vegetables for breakfast. Great. All of that is proteins and healthy fats. The eggs have those omega-3s for your brain. Um, and then she had this great big salad for lunch. And then she was out with her family. And then they said, "You're losing weight. You're looking good. What are you doing?" And she told them, and they said, "Oh, you're eating that bougie food." Why? Why can't we normalize eating healthy in our community? So there are plenty of people who are eating healthy food. I like on Instagram, I follow Tabitha Brown. She's doing, I think she might even be vegan, vegetarian. I feel like
Yeah,
vegan
no,
is
she's
hard.
definitely vegan. Yeah,
That's
but
kind of hard.
delightful to follow.
There's a lot of folks to follow who are in our communities and honoring our traditions, and we know how to use seasoning and we know how to use flavor. We do not have to give that up to eat healthy. So, and I have some family my family's from the Caribbean, um, and diabetes runs in my family. And I have this one favorite aunt, and when we all got together for Thanksgiving, she brought her own um, healthy vegetable sides, and they were delicious. They got eaten up faster than everything else. But it doesn't have to not have flavor, and it doesn't have to not be in your traditions in order to be healthy. So, I felt a little bit bad for her in that her family was pressuring her. Her sister was pressuring her by trying to call her out for trying to eat healthy. But that doesn't have to be the case. And she also needed the same advice. So we have to kind of reframe things that, our communities can eat healthy, and it could be our version of healthy food. And that's great.
And why do we have to label things like that to say you're eating bougie if you are eating salads and lean foods that are good for you. Why does that have to be a bougie thing?
I think I don't know why she tried to call her out like that, but usually when people say something like that, it's because they're feeling a little bit bad about maybe some of the choices they
Mm,
made,
yeah,
and it doesn't necessarily have to be against someone to make healthy choices. So it might be more, and you don't want to necessarily start something with your family, but it might be worth just asking. Use curiosity.
mm-hmm.
Why does it have to be bougie to have like a salad with bacon and hard-boiled eggs? And why is
That
that? What does
sounds
that have to do
good.
with anybody, right? That it does sound good,
Yeah,
and it's filling if you put enough stuff in it.
yeah.
But
So,
yeah, I think her sister needed a little bit of a reset in terms of it's actually okay for her food and our food to be healthy too.
and
So
I think people need to realize that it's not realistic to make a lot of changes at the same time. So, like your patient who just stopped drinking the sweet tea and that's all he did, and it was very impactful. Just do one thing and see what happens. So,
actually, somebody asked a question about reversing, and one of the things I want to mention is one of my
reversing,
favorite diabetes.
how
If
long
you're
does
on the
it take to
cusp,
reverse if you're okay? Yeah.
um, so the answer is since that your body makes fresh blood every 3 months, it could be as quick as 3 months. So, say you're having that sweet tea every day. The next day on, you're religious about it. You don't have anything like that. The next day, your sugars are going to be good, but you're still going to have some of this old blood floating around. So, in about 3 months, you'll have a whole new fresh set based on your new healthy habits. So, it can happen as quickly as 3 months. But for most people, it takes a little bit more time, 3 months, 6 months, but it can be as quick as 3 months. And I've seen people go from that 14% down to 5% based on nothing but changing their food.
Yeah.
Exercise is good too. One of my favorite studies or research studies is one where they had people who were just like on the edge of diabetes or just found out about it, and this was a thousands of people all across the country. Half the people they told to go take metformin or glucophage, which is the medicine that a lot of people take for their diabetes, and the other half they told to go do 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. So, and a brisk walk counts. Brisk walk, swim, stationary bike. You don't have to go out and run a marathon. Whatever gets your heart going. The both groups did better, but the group that did exercise did better than the group that got the prescription.
By how much?
30% of the people who got the prescription did well. 60% of the people who did the exercise got better.
Wow, let's get moving, folks. Let's
Just a
get
little bit.
moving.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people just get the prescription when they go in the door and they see that blood test. But it turns out if you could go on a walk every
Yeah.
day, you will do better. And it's not a weight loss thing. Like your sugars are better that day. You didn't lose 50 pounds that day, but insulin opens the front door to get that sugar out of your blood. Exercise has nothing to do with insulin. It's like this back door, and that the sugar, it just starts cleaning. Once your muscles get activated after those 30 minutes, even if you sit down, those muscles will start continue to clear sugar out of your bloodstream for hours.
Because the primary fuel muscles want to use is sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you switch to a keto diet,
Mm-hmm.
so your body actually can use protein and healthy fat as a fuel. And although, a lot of marathon trainers and what have you will tell you to carb load, it turns out when they compared them directly, the people their body had adapted to using healthy fats or ketones for energy had more stamina than the people who carb loaded the night before. But your
Wow,
body has to
interesting.
adapt. It's not like a thing you do overnight. It takes a couple of weeks or so.
Mm-hmm. I have my own testimonial about the impact of sugar. It's not, I'm not pre-diabetic, but I had high cholesterol. It was over 200, which shocked me because I have to confess, even though I'm a doctor, I don't have regular checkups. But I checked my blood sugar and it was I think it was something like 230. And all I did was I gave up cookies, candy, ice cream, like those kinds of desserts. That's all I did. And it dropped to 167. So something is happening with sugar and cholesterol too.
Exactly.
What's going on
Exactly.
there?
Um, well, the first thing that drops is your triglycerides. So the triglycerides follow the sugars, and the
The
rest of the cholesterol,
triglycerides is like the little
it's
fatty
part,
chains. Yeah.
right. So that's part of
Hmm.
your cholesterol. And so as your sugars get better, for most people, like 90, 95% of folks, their cholesterol will get better as their sugars get better, and they eat
Yeah.
better.
That's
So
amazing.
it's not
The
a fat
body.
thing, it's a sugar thing.
Yeah. The body is so amazing, right?
Mm.
You have another question here, though. What about the Mediterranean diet? It has lots of grains, but is it healthy? And are grains considered in that carb group you were talking about?
Yes, thank you for asking that because it is, it's not just bread and pasta and potatoes, but it's also grains and rice and
Like
stuff like that.
quinoa?
But see, here's the thing.
I
You
love
can still eat your
quinoa.
quinoa. Go ahead then, because the way I see it, it's better than what people are doing routinely, right? So people ask me like, well, doesn't diet soda have all those chemicals? Yeah. And so if you can get your body more used to water, then that's even better. But I'd much rather you have a diet soda or a zero sugar soda than a full sugar soda or a milkshake. So, so full sugar soda milkshake, that's the worst. And then a diet soda is not as bad, and water is even better. So, you know, is a Mediterranean diet good? It's a great alternative. It doesn't have the studies that show that it necessarily reverses diabetes, but it's good for your health, and it may reverse your diabetes if the way you were eating before had a lot of more starches and unhealthy food. So, standard American diet, SAD, SAD, then is worse, probably place you could be. And then if you get to the Mediterranean diet, that's going to cut your risk of, you know, bad health outcomes dramatically. And then if you can actually get to a lower carb version of the Mediterranean diet, I think that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. The American diet is it's a bit of an enigma. I asked my Afghani Uber driver the other day what he thought about American food. And he said, I can't really tell what American is. It McDonald's? Is it Burger King? I thought that is so sad
Right.
that the American diet is now the same as fast food. It's terrible. We really have to do better. So, Dr. Kayla, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to tell folks before we go?
Well, mostly that if you could just, even if you don't change anything about what you eat, and you
Mm-hmm.
just change what you drink, if you can choose something else, even your coffee with sweetener instead of sweet tea in the summertime, and you could get moving, go for a walk with a friend on the phone a little bit every day, then that's going to go a long way. Research shows it'll go a long way towards reversing your chances of diabetes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. We will be calling on you again, and all of you who are following Grapevine Health, stay tuned for our What the Body Do series. We will start populating content related to that, and it's very similar to what you see here. We'll have experts like Dr. Kayla come on and explain what the body do. So in her case, she's explaining diabetes, what's happening, what you should be eating. So be sure to follow us, and we'll see you later. Thanks, Dr. Kayla.
Thanks for having me. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.